What's up YouTube? It's Nora, and today I am back with a bit of a more personal video, which is going to be my experience with anxiety. So before I start, guys, check out my cool, I don't know how much you can read it, but it says, "Just Beat It," and it says Crohn's and Colitis Warrior. I don't believe it's an official Nike shirt, but I just ordered it and I thought it was cool, so I thought I would share it with you guys. So let's start from the time when I was a little kid. So when I was a little kid, I was very much a child who was great with routine. I liked being able to have a set schedule. I didn't like changes. It threw me off. It made me anxious, I guess, but I didn't know that it was anxiety. I would just get really worked up and nervous about it. One of the first big times that I showed that I was actually having anxiety issues was my first day of first grade. I was not a child that had separation anxiety. I went to multiple daycares. When I was a kid, I had babysitters. Preschool and kindergarten are in the same exact building as the elementary school. We had our own area to eat. So what happened was I got to first grade. I was very familiar with the school. My mother worked there. I knew all the kids in my class. It was a very, very tiny classroom. And it was time to go to lunch. So when we tried to go to the lunchroom, like every other first grader does, and goes in and gets their food and sit, I had a mental breakdown. I started crying. I was like hyperventilating. I refused to go in the cafeteria. The teacher could not get me to go in. And I was having an anxiety attack that I had never actually experienced before. So because of how upset I was, teachers actually had to call my mother and bring her to the school and talk with her about how upset I was, because I was just complete meltdown, freaking out about everything because I just didn't want to go and eat in the cafeteria with the big kids. So my mom showed up, and it actually ended up that we had to make a plan that every single day someone in my class would go into the cafeteria, would be like my lunch buddy, I guess they call them, just a simple term, and would have to sit with me and would have to go up and get my food with me, because that was the only way that they could figure that I would actually go into the cafeteria. So besides that one time in elementary school, I really didn't have any other issues throughout elementary school. It was really the root of the problem started in middle school. So middle school was kind of a few rough years for me. Middle school started at 7th grade, went to 8th grade, and then you went to high school after that. Pretty much I didn't have many friends because I stuck my thumb in elementary school, and I was only friends with the kids who had moved in because those were the only kids that I was willing to talk to, and I was the only kid in my class who pretty much would talk to them. Everyone else would just exclude them, so I was like, I'll be friends with them. So middle school came around and everyone parted their own ways, and that was very difficult for me. They purposely put you on teams in middle school, so again you're with the same kind of people, and after a while I was fine. But I had joined Girl Scouts, and my Girl Scout troop and I had decided that we were going to go on a trip to Vermont to one of the troop leaders' condos, just to go as a vacation, kind of a weekend thing, just to see Vermont. We saw Ben & Jerry's, we saw the Vermont Teddy Bear Factory, we went to a glass-making place, pretty much just being a tourist and doing touristy things. So the first night we got to the condo, I was fine with sleeping over places. I never had an issue with it before. It was me and the rest of the girls in my troop. We were very small at that time. And the troop leaders had wanted to be like, hey, you guys can have your own time, so we're going to go into our room, we're going to plan out tomorrow's day, finalize it, and then we're going to go to bed. So you guys can go to bed, but we really weren't actually going to bed. We were just like sitting on our little iPods and socializing. Just for treats and kicks and giggles, my troop leader and her daughter had brought a lot of candy. I remember specifically Twizzlers, and I'm guessing probably things like Oreos and stuff. And me being like complete ADHD excited kid to be on this trip, because I'd never been to Vermont before, especially in a condo next to a ski mountain, I'd say fall. It wasn't actually winter yet. I decided that I was going to eat a bunch of candy all at once, and then I was going to run around in circles, and I ended up vomiting. So after I ended up vomiting, I was actually put on the air mattress that I was sleeping on in the hallway, and that was where I slept the rest of the trip. I think after I had gotten sick at that point, I think I'd also had like a cold that time, and so we went around Vermont eating like chocolate and cheese, which was not a good combination. That also made me sick and pukey almost. I didn't actually vomit, but it made me just feel sick. And then we'd gone to drink cider the same day, and it was just a lot of driving, a lot of eating weird things that I wasn't normally used to. So over time, it kind of created this, I want to say, aversion, you could call it, or a reaction to whenever I would go on sleepovers or go to a hotel or go on vacation or sleep anywhere that I wasn't used to. My anxiety, or not even my anxiety, because I don't think about it. It was like my subconscious would make me sick and would work me up. And I wouldn't lay there thinking like, oh, I'm going to be sick, I'm going to be sick. I would lay there and be fine, and then all of a sudden it was like, I need to vomit, or I need to go like poop myself, because of this one time that I'd had a bad trip. It just like triggered my anxiety for the rest of my high school experience and middle school experience. So after that, I had a lot of trouble sleeping over people's houses who I'd slept over 10 plus times, who I'd done double, triple sleepovers with. Whenever I would go to their house, I would try and go to sleep, I'd be fine, and then all of a sudden, it's like, as I'm falling asleep, I'm going to puke. So I would get really sick at people's houses sometimes. Okay, one time I also did vomit because I ate chips and water the whole night. I'll admit that. So I kind of really didn't set myself up so well for sleepovers, because I would get that chance to eat a bunch of junk food. So pretty much that was very hard for me because I never wanted to travel. I would get someplace and I knew I was going to get sick, and I would anticipate it, and I would work myself up and pretty much just have a complete like panic attack and vomit every single time I tried to go anywhere, which was just absolutely like hell for me. So at this point, I still didn't understand what was happening. I just knew that I would get sick when I go over to places. I figured it was just because of change in what I was eating or whatever. But then I think when I got to high school, which again was a very hard change for me, going to an even bigger school, I think I read something on the internet about anxiety. I'd watched the video somewhere, and I kind of was in the car with my mom one time, and I said, I think I have anxiety. I never really understood what it was. I never figured, oh, there was this thing that could make me be acting a certain way and having trouble on certain trips. And then it started to come out when I started to learn how to drive, because I'm a very, very anxious driver, because when I know like something can be very dangerous, like driving, you can be safe because you're a good driver, but like you can still get into car accidents and it's very dangerous, and that's what my brain overthinks and works up. So pretty much I had started learning how to drive, and I still do it to this day. I overanalyze where I'm on the road. I'm like, oh, I'm too close to the yellow line, but I'm too close to the white line. But if I go too far to the white line, I'm going to go off the shoulder. But I also live on very tight roads where if you go too close to the line, if you're even on a corner that someone's cutting, you're going to get hit. So that was another time when I really was like, oh my gosh, I kind of have an issue with this and maybe I should do something about it. But I didn't know how to say to my mom, like, I need help, like, I need to see someone about this, or I need to talk about it, or just do something, because I was kind of being kind of miserable in my own skin, because I wouldn't want to go over to anybody's houses because I was afraid that I was going to get sick, or I didn't want to travel anywhere, which I love traveling, but I still, like, even going to my aunt's house, I would get sick at, like, it was just, I was kind of drowning in my own subconscious fear that I didn't even know could happen, and it just was taking over my life. Over time, I still kind of let it ruin my life. I left a lot of sleepovers, or I like dodged out of sleepovers because I just didn't want to get sick, and I knew I was somehow going to get worked up, and I didn't really think it was an issue. I knew some things calmed me, like if I thought about paddleboarding. Like paddleboarding, I don't know why, but it's like completely calming to me. I still love doing it to this day, or sometimes if I just sat in like a quiet room, or even if like I went to a sleepover and I stayed awake, I still felt better being awake and being alert than closing my eyes. Closing my eyes is when I really freaked out. So the one time that really was an eye-opener for my mom was senior year. We were supposed to be touring colleges, and we had done one college in the state that I live in, and then we were going down to another state where my aunt and uncle lives, and I'd stayed over their house before for the One Direction concert, but when we got back it was like 2 or 3, so I didn't have time to be like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get sick. I just like fell asleep after a One Direction concert. So I knew I wanted to be in the basement. I wasn't feeling overall well with my colitis. My colitis was causing me to have some issues at the time. I think this was the time where I figured out that I was having like IBS, kind of constipation issues. So that wasn't making me feel well, and I had purposely brought crackers just in case, because sometimes like eating makes me feel like I'm not going to puke if you're just constantly slowly eating like crackers or something. So I slept in their basement, which had its own bathroom, and it was separate from the rest of the part of the house, and my mom was upstairs. I was fine, I was comfortable, I was like, I got this, like I slept here before, and I completely went to go sleep, and I freaked out. And it was like, this is probably one of the most times that I've never felt like I had any control over my body. I was shaking, my muscles in my legs were like involuntarily spasming, and I like couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop my breathing. I pretty much at some points was rocking back and forth. So I texted my mom and I was like, Mom, I need my crackers. I like need the crackers because they might be the only thing that like will help me. And I had already gotten sick, already completely pooped myself, and I needed the crackers. So I texted my mom and she was like, no. And so she's like, you just need to go to sleep. And she was being a bit harsh with me because she was like, I just want you to go to bed and you're causing your aunt to be awake. So I actually sat there for about 2 hours having a complete panic attack to the point where I was so tired that I finally fell asleep. And I think that was, watching me have a complete mental breakdown was the rock bottom for both my mom and I. After this whole issue came about, we kind of talked about it and we kind of wanted to ignore it because, again, it wasn't like I was going to be sleeping over my best friend's houses as a senior in high school every other day. But I knew that college was coming up, and college was going to be a huge issue because I was going to be sleeping in a room with someone who I'd really never met before, and having a mental breakdown is like not acceptable. Like, you have to live there, you have to get to know each other, and you have to just be okay with it. So I finally said to my mom, we need to do something about this. I cannot live this way. It's taking over me. You saw it. So my mom finally was like, okay. So we went to our pediatrician. Our pediatrician was like, I'll give you some medication because but I also want you to go to a psychologist. Psychologists can't provide medication, so he had to. Psychiatrists can, but he wanted to send me a psychologist. So I went to therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, and I learned just techniques to like calm myself down. The most prominent one was just say to yourself, I'm taking my power back. Kind of look around and be like, I'm safe, I'm not in harm's way. If I need to stay up or distract myself, that's okay. When I feel comfortable sleeping, I can go to sleep. And the medication definitely helped me when I was driving. And the transition to college, it was much easier. I still was very nervous and was like worked up on the first night, but I was able to go to sleep much easier, saying I'm taking my power back to myself. And after that, I weaned off it. So I'm not currently on any medication. I feel like the back and forth between college and living at home has definitely helped me with the anxiety and realizing, hey, I'm not going to get sick. That's just like your subconscious working yourself up, and just take my power back. That's pretty much as far as it's gotten me since then. I mean, I haven't had any issues with it after that. I still sometimes get like apprehensive and a little like not wanting to go on trips because I'm afraid that I'm going to have an anxiety attack, but the behavior definitely helped me, and that's been my experience with it. If you guys have any comments, just leave them down below. I am more than willing to share more about my experience with it with you guys, and I would also like to hear your guys' experience with it. If this helped you at all, again, just comment down below, and thank you guys for watching.